Considering how extreme Canada's immigration policy is, it's shocking to see how little actual discussion there is on the topic. When it comes to this most polarizing of issues, any attempt at questioning the dominant narrative is usually met with sophistry, appeals to emotion, or generally fallacious claims. If I was trying to sell the idea of submerging a country's native population in endless waves of undesirables, you'd think some hard evidence or at least a few convincing arguments might be in order. Apparently that's unnecessary in the current year. It's really quite the indictment of liberal orthodoxy as a whole when the prevailing myths about immigration can be debunked with a 5-minute internet search. That's where we come in. Number 1. Immigration is a source of economic growth and prosperity. Statistics Canada's 2006 census reveals that between 1980 and 2005, during which time non-white immigration reached the historic levels that continue to this day, the median earnings of Canadians grew by a mere 0.1%. That's considered statistically insignificant. Moreover, the earnings of the poorest segment of the population fell by 20.6%. Even more surprising, according to a study by the Economic Council of Canada, the periods with the highest increase in real per capita income during the past 100 years were those when net migration was zero or even negative. Also, Health and Welfare Canada reported that the OECD found no correlation whatsoever between population growth and economic growth in its 22 member countries. Number 2. We need immigration due to our aging population. For starters, this myth implies that an aging population is inherently a bad thing. Some experts, such as the University of Ottawa's Andrew Mired, argue that an older workforce would be better adapted to the needs of our modern, technology-oriented economy. Others suggest practical solutions such as better training and education, and putting an end to mandatory retirement practices, for example, none of which involve immigration. However, when people bring up this specific myth, they're usually referring to the concept of replacement migration, which is defined as the international migration that would be needed to offset declines in the size of population, the declines in the population of working age, as well as to offset the overall aging of a population. Data from multiple sources suggests that in order for it to truly affect the age structure of the population in any discernible way, immigration intake would immediately have to be raised to apocalyptic levels. According to a study by the C.D. Howe Institute, Canada's population would have to reach 165 million by 2050, which would involve accepting 7 million immigrants per year. StatsCan noted in their 2001 census that, given Canada's current age distribution, overall population aging is unavoidable, and immigration has limited impact on population aging. Number 3. Immigration is needed to address skilled labor shortages. Once again, the alarmist rhetoric in this regard just isn't supported by facts. Migration pimps would have us believe that every other company is dangerously short-staffed, and that massive immigration is, as always, the only solution. In contrast, a study by the Department of Human Resources Development Canada found no evidence to suggest that there was any aggregate shortage of skilled labor, and that Canada compared favorably with many of its principal competitors in world markets in terms of human capital. Demographics experts are quick to point out that a nationwide unemployment rate that hovers around the 7% mark is hardly an indicator of any critical labor shortage. In a report to the House of Commons in 2012, Kenneth V. Georgetti of the Canadian Labour Congress stated that, with 5 unemployed workers for every job available, our main problem remains unemployment, pure and simple. Let me assure you that if unemployed workers had the means to identify where the jobs were, and then had access to the training required to do those jobs, they would jump at the chance. The thoroughly unwarranted influx of skilled immigrants into Canada also contributes to the phenomenon known as brain drain. In the year 2000, for example, over 15,000 immigrants declared engineering as their professional qualification, a number which was 50% higher than the number of engineering degrees emitted by Canadian universities that year. This sudden surplus of engineers explains the relatively low salaries in that field in Canada when compared to the United States, which is a major reason why many of our best engineering graduates accept employment offers from American companies rather than stay in Canada. Number 4. Canada is one of the least densely populated countries on Earth. There's more than enough space for everyone. Most of that so-called open space is uninhabitable. Canadians are well aware of this, which is why 80% of us settled within 100 miles of the US border, on a strip of land that covers roughly 7.3% of the country's total surface. Immigrants are also aware of this. 90% of them settled in one of Canada's 12 largest metropolitan areas. Once the frozen wastelands are removed from the equation, the real population density in this country is about 10 times higher than the official figures. In addition, the potential for Canada to be agriculturally self-sufficient is greatly hindered by the tendency to settle so close to the US border. 51% of Canada's best, or Class 1 farmland is located in Ontario, specifically in the southernmost part, which is not only heavily industrialized, but also the location of a massive population boom due to immigration. According to 2001's Canada Land Inventory, over 18% of Ontario's Class 1 farmland has already been squandered due to urban development. Upon careful review, it appears that the government, mass media, and academia's arguments in favor of mass immigration are based on complete bullshit. Of all the challenges that Canada will have to face in the 21st century, it's increasingly evident that immigration is the solution to literally none of them. Being well informed on an issue is always more useful than inarticulate rage, however, and if politicians and pundits were called out on their disinformation on a systematic basis, we'd really be getting somewhere. In any case, the omnipresence of these myths and others within the political discourse in this country is a testament to just how successful they are, and it gives new meaning to the saying, if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it.